Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all tonight. I'm glad you could join us. I wanted to start tonight by kind of telling you all the story behind this article. And if I do a presentation called Untangling the Family Yarn, and this is the particular story that I used in that. Sometimes your family stories have facts mixed in with embellishments, and my great grandmother, who spread lots of these stories, was known for her embellishments. This is one of those stories, and her son would talk about it all the time, and he was always telling me he wanted me to figure this out. He was like, just here's this name, you just research it down to us and tell us, where the money's at. So his version of the story was that a newspaper article came out. He was born in 1930, and it said from rags to riches, and it was about their family. And people just started showing up at their house saying they were related, and they didn't know them at all. And then he said that his grandfather had gone back to home, which was Ohio, around Zanesville, Ohio, to make settlement or whatever. And that this was during the time of the Lindenberg kidnapping, baby kidnapping. So his mom wouldn't let them take their share of the money because she was afraid he would be stolen. So that was the story that he gave me. And he said that his brother had written a letter back in the 50s, and he had a copy of it to the courthouse, and he kept mentioning this Nancy Nichols. There's no Nancy Nichols that I've ever come across in my research. And so I did like a timeline, and I said, okay, here's the facts of this story. I wrote them down, and it started out with his grandfather dying in 1927, and he wasn't born until 1930. So I'm like, okay, well, here's this problem, Uncle Jerry. Your grandpa was already passed away when you were born. And I put the timeline on there of when the Lindenberg baby was kidnapped and that information, and it did not mesh well with the story either. And then there was the Nancy Nichols, and there was nobody in the family. I said, your grandmother's name was Nancy Jane Reed. Her parents were Isaac Reed and Elizabeth Howard. I have no information on Nichols. And he did find the letter that his brother had written to the courthouse in the 50s, and I have a copy of it, but they said they couldn't find any information on what they were looking for.
Huh.
A few years ago, when I did Gen Fed in Washington, D.C., one night we went to the Daughters of American Revolution building, the DAR building, and did research, and I didn't have any research prepared to look for. So I just got on the computer and started typing in family names that I could think of. And I typed in my earliest Dover ancestor and his wife, and a thing came up about a will in West Virginia. And it was about a man's name, I believe his name was James Nicholson. And he mentioned these people that the men all had the same last name as him. And the women all had obviously married names, but one of them was Margaret Dover, which would have been my ancestor. And it left them each like 5 shillings. And he said, to the rest, or to my youngest 3 sons, I leave my plantation. And so I'm thinking Nicholson, Nichols. I know you said Nancy, but maybe it's this Margaret. So I thought maybe that was where the story got started from. Maybe they thought they were going to get some inheritance from that, but that was way earlier. That was around 1802, and that's a far cry from 1930. So occasionally I go into newspapers.com and different databases, and I just type in names that I'm looking for. And this Jesse Clyde Dover is one of them I search for a lot because he's in all the newspapers at different times, and he moved around a lot.
Did you say that he was he's a relative of yours?
Yes, he
Oh,
is.
okay.
He's my great uncle. And so if you looked at the article, let me see, I can share this, see if I can share this on here.
Have you got permission? Yeah.
Okay, can you see the article?
Yes.
It talks about this J.C. Dover, and he's living in Stillwater, and the money story. And then notice the man's name is Nicholas, John Nicholas Emmerich, which I thought might be a clue. But if you get down to the second column of this paragraph where it says J.C. Dover and A.M. Dover of Stillwater, A.M. is his brother, Alonzo McClure Dover. D.W. is my great-grandfather, Daniel Webster Dover. Columbus, Kansas is where my great uncle that carried on the story was born and lived in that area. Flora Huntley is another sister.
Elizabeth McGinty.
And she was another sister. Oddly enough, Flora Huntley was actually Flora McCormick at this time. And so those were all siblings, and their parents were Theodore William Dover and Nancy Jane Reed. So one of the classes I took at SLIG, the very first class I took was an intermediate research taught by Paula Stewart Warren. And she did this. She gave us an article and she said, you all go out and see what you can figure out about these people in this article. And she didn't give us any other information. And it was like a 1-paragraph little article. And I was amazed by the different avenues that everyone took to find information. There was a room of probably 40 people, and everyone seemed to come up with different resources to look for information in. So, but it was a great challenge, and it just kind of got you into that mode of thinking out of the box. The one thing in the newspaper article that she provided was an address. And I went out and researched like land records for that address to try to figure out information about that. And other people had just gone to census records, but some had found other records as well as that too. So that being said, that's why I'm sharing this article with you all. And I held off on doing any research because I didn't want to I wanted you guys to come up with ideas and see what you came up with and let it be a learning experience for you and not just me hearing about what I found. So does anybody want to talk about what records they looked at or what they might look at if they were going to research this article?
Well, I can tell you where I started.
Okay.
First, I went to Ancestry and tried to look them up, and I found some information on them, but I couldn't find enough to really make me feel like I knew what I was really doing.
Okay.
So I spent yesterday trying to work with it, and then today I went out on Google and I Googled his name, and there's a lot of information on the court cases about the will.
Okay.
And so I found some background stories. You know, in the article that you shared with us, it said that he was a business partner with this John Jacob Astor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, he says John Nicholas Emmerich was in a family, and I think they were all millionaires. They were all had a lot of money and everything. And,
right.
And so then John Jacob became his friend, and he felt sorry for John Jacob. He said in one of the things, he said that he was a poor boy. And so John Nichols Emmerich took him under his wing and lent him some money. and then they made this partnership, and they were fur traders.
Okay.
And so they made a lot of money in this fur trading thing. And John actually taught John Jacob Astor the business. And they went into the partnership, and John Emmerich wanted to keep 2 parts of the business, and John Jacob could keep the 3rd part. So they divided it that way. And they went into a written agreement. And but what I couldn't understand is if it had been filed or not, because nobody knew about this.
Okay.
And that's where the big mystery comes in, you know, about his will and everything. And then I did find that he had these 2 sisters, Flora and Elizabeth. So I knew that I was on the right track then, that I had the right family that I was talking to him about. It says, now this article was in 1929. All these articles were in 1929. I was getting the idea that they were recent, but they weren't. They were all, this all happened in 1928 and 1929. And
which was quite a while after Emmerich had passed away. I mean, he'd been dead a long time.
And I believe he passed away in 1816.
Yeah, a long time.
And he had 2 brothers. He had a brother Christopher and a brother Valentine. And Christopher and Valentine, and I believe John was married, but John had no issue. He didn't have any sons or daughters.
Okay.
And so he couldn't leave it to him. So he left it to the families of Christopher and Valentine.
Okay.
And so somewhere the Dovers have to come in through those 2 lines.
Okay.
Which one it was. And I couldn't find this Margaret Nicholson, but she was the wife of Philip Dover. Is that right? The great-grandparents?
The Nicholson will that I found was James Nicholson, and his daughter, I believe, is Margaret.
Okay. Now in
she's named in a will.
This what we're talking about is actually was in February. I mean in Philadelphia. And they found it in a chest. He had put it in a chest. And
the will.
John died. John Emmerich died, and John Astor decided he'd just keep the whole thing. He didn't want to share it, and he didn't feel like anyone else knew about it, evidently. And that's the reason I said I don't know if it was filed or not. You know, that this agreement that they'd had. And so all this has started happening in 28 and 29 was the family, the Emmerich's family, going after the Astor family to get that money back and try to get it. And the article from the Stillwater paper, I think, was in February.
Yes.
And I found where they had a final settlement in December, but I don't think they got it. I think it was dismissed.
There is another article that says that his claim was rejected.
Yeah.
There is another article that says that.
Yeah,
so,
I found that, yeah. So I went to newspapers.com, and that's where I found a lot of the articles.
Yeah, that's my favorite newspaper resource right now, especially for Oklahoma, because they're doing so much. Is newspapers.com. But does anybody else want to share where they might look for records based on this newspaper article?
Baby, did you do any?
Yeah, I first I went through and I verified who all those people were that were listed in the newspaper, that, you know, that was his brothers and sisters, and then Miss Ida was his aunt. And I found an article that said that he died at the home of Balthius Emmerich, but I never could find who Balthius was.
They're the ones that made the initial, brought this to the courts.
But I thought maybe he was the son of one of his brothers, but I could never find, and I didn't start working on this until about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Oh,
And but I found some stories on Ancestry that talked about someone else had done all this research and had all the times that it went to court and was denied, and that there were many Emmerich associations that and other families that tried to file on this, and nobody got anywhere with it. So once I learned all that, I decided it was kind of one of those hoax things and put it aside.
Well, I would think that one of the key things that to look for in this record is the actual probate file from the court for John Nicholas Emmerich. And I would believe that the people that were making those claims would have submitted some information on how they believed they were related to him. So I think that, to me, that's my key thing that I need to go look for is that actual claim that Jesse filed in that probate case, to see what he offered as his relationship to Emmerich and how he was proving that.
And that was in Ohio, is that correct?
I thought it was in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
yeah, most of it took place in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So definitely
Have you ever been able to link your family to Emmerich?
This article was the first I'd ever heard of Emmerich, and I did not do any research while we were waiting because I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to research it and look at it without me just telling you what I found.
And the article was a little bit misleading because it identified all those Dovers as great grandsons or as grandsons of some generation and granddaughters, but not. I mean,
yeah, great grandsons and great granddaughters of the deceased multimillionaire. So that's why I think I need to get that actual claim that Jesse filed in that case to see how he's saying they're related to him. I want to say this about the newspapers. You know, we think the media sensationalizes things now. They have always done that. They have always done that. It's just more evident now because we have more access to things than people did back then with the newspapers. And I believe Mr. Jesse Dover was a big storyteller. So, well, and it looks like it says there were securities and real estate in New York, Baltimore, and Newark, and Philadelphia. And as far as probates go, if you own properties in different counties and states, sometimes you have to file a case where you live, and then you have to file an ancillary probate estate in the other states to deal with that land. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So Tulsa County Courthouse really doesn't have the authority to distribute land in Creek County. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it depends on the state laws, but there might be even additional probate filings in different areas because he owned property in so many places.
Okay.
Definitely the newspapers are definitely somewhere that you need to look. And Libby, you said, the one was his aunt.
Yeah, I thought Ida was his aunt.
And that's where it says Dover left Sunday for picture where he'll confer with Mrs. Iva.
Yeah, I never found her.
Yeah.
I could not read what that, I mean, a last name for that.
I found it.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that he had an Aunt Ida, so.
Okay.
In this article, Annette, that sentence is doubled right there.
Right,
And
right.
it says he will confer with Mrs. Iva soon. And
Yeah.
so they didn't give her
Yeah.
last name.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said Ida, but I meant Iva.
Okay.
Well, and this one article that I found that I printed off, it says, oh, I lost the page, but it says lawsuits were filed by the Emmerichs. An Emmerich claim against Astor Estate. It doesn't say anything about Dover, but it says lawsuits were filed in 1928, 1930, and 1932, and the cases failed for insufficient evidence.
I don't think they could prove it must have been in the lineage. And like I say, Abbott kept or John Astor kept he never told them about the agreement. And so the family just had all the money and everything. And it's been so long that they couldn't go back and find anything. They found this,
The will.
yeah, they found the will at the home of Balthius Emmerich, a baker in Philadelphia. So that was some relative of John.
Okay.
And then, but he kept the agreement to himself. And then he kept the money too. This is Abbott. See, so when John died, he didn't say anything, any of them.
Right. Right.
And then they found the will, and they found it in the trunk of, let's see, it was found in a box on the bottom of an ancient trunk, and it was found by this Edna Carnahan in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
So the will was in Wisconsin?
Yeah, it was in a trunk. And so it must have been moved around a lot. See, I guess when he died, he did not have a wife and he did not have any children.
Okay.
And so I think the Emmerich family must have taken his possessions and took them into their families.
So it's interesting that he didn't have a wife. I mean, he didn't have any children.
Mm-hmm.
And this article is saying that the Dovers are his great grandchildren.
Well, I think that's what Libby was trying to say a while ago.
Yeah.
She's wondering how the Dovers got in there. And it has to be in this lineage of these two other boys, Christopher and Valentine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Well,
they were
that's
the brothers.
why that's why I definitely
about these articles I found talk about a George Emmerich that had at one time had this suitcase or trunk, but I don't know whose son. I didn't find who he belonged to.
Okay,
but there's a book. There was a book that a lot of it made reference to called John Jacob Astor, an unwritten chapter by C.I. Hoy. And it has a lot of information in it about John Nicholas Emmerich.
Okay. So this is not related actually to the search, but do you guys know what John Jacob Astor is most known for?
His name's very familiar.
Well, was he part of the Astor family?
And I think he was on the Titanic.
The Titanic, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave up his seat in the boat, in the rescue boat, went down with the Titanic. I remember the story right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just interesting to me. Of all people, it was somebody that I had heard of before. So
I found when I went to Google's roots, what is it? Shucks, I can't. It wasn't, what is the Roots website?
Roots Web?
Yeah, Roots Web. Roots Web had this story. And so that's where I first started finding out some information about him. And it gives a short version of him that he was born in Germany. And the Astor was also born in Germany. So I wonder if they knew each other from,
Maybe they grew up together.
Astor, let's see, John Nicholas was said to have taught John Nicholas, and they call him John Nicholas in death.
Well, they came from England on the same boat.
They came from Germany.
Well, but they left from England.
Oh, okay.
So I consider this descendancy research, and it's kind of similar to what C.C. Moore does with her DNA. Is she determines the descendants of the common match. You know, she has this common ancestor, and then she determines the descendants of that. So in my mind, the way to research this article is to research the descendancy of John Nicholas Emmerich. And if you determine right off the bat he has no children, then you have to go back a previous generation. You have to figure out who his parents are, and you have to determine his siblings, and then you do descendancy research for them. Because if he has no spouse and he has no children when he passes away and he dies without a will, then you start looking for the next closest relation. And so,
well, his brothers, they had like Christopher looked to be the more likely one to give you information, because it seems like he had more children than Christopher Valentine. Let's see, John Valentine and Christopher. Well, I was researching today. I was looking for Valentine. I hadn't gotten to Christopher yet. I was trying to come back down there and see where the Dovers came in.
So we have that pedigree chart from Jesse Clyde that we know so many generations back what paper trails have given us. And when I say that, I can tell you that I also have DNA that confirms a lot of that. The uncle that shared the great uncle that shared the stories, he also had an Indian story, how we were Indian, and I was supposed to just go to tribes and look at a name list until I found our family.
Oh no.
And so I finally said to him, okay, Uncle Jerry, the only way we're going to prove this is you're just going to have to spit in the tube. And so he did. He was so excited about it. He did it. And his test results came back from Ancestry, and it literally said 97% from the British Isles.
Oh,
97%. It was my pie chart looks like a kaleidoscope. His was solid yellow, except for one little sliver. And when his came back. So
what did he say about that?
He didn't say too much about that, but I did not have to hear about the Indian story anymore after that. So, and I also explained to him when I was talking to him about it, I just didn't say, hey, I've done the research and I know you're not Indian. I said, look, here's where your family was in these different times. They were never in the right place to be Indians, except they wound up in Oklahoma Territory because of the land run. Jesse Clyde and his parents and his siblings came in during the land run in Noble County, and settled in Perry, Oklahoma. So that's why they were in Oklahoma. It wasn't because they were Indians. So anyway, he had lots and lots of stories like that, and I love to hear his stories. And I just want you to know that there's always some truth in these stories. And I think that can be told by this newspaper article that, I mean, I searched the Miami News Record because it's very close to the area in Kansas they lived. And so I would search for From Rags to Riches in newspapers.com, thinking that eventually I was going to find some newspaper article. And so when this one came up, I was like, this is kind of the same thing. It says something about a rainbow, but it all has to do with riches. So I would take that pedigree chart that I've got for Jesse Clyde and his siblings. Basically, they have the same tree. And then I would try to take the descendancy research from John Nicholas Emmerich and see if there's a way that those can come together. But the biggest factor is probably going to be that rejected claim from the probate court. I've got to figure out exactly which court it was filed in and locate that court record and order it.
Okay, I put 2 more links in the chat, Annette. And the bottom one is this casemine.com.
I'm not seeing your links, Dorothy. The last one I'm seeing is the pedigree chart that I uploaded.
Well, wait a minute here.
Same here.
Here.
Oh, there it is.
Well,
I forgot to hit enter. It's
Okay.
sitting in my chat. So
Okay.
the case mine was the judgment case.
Okay, perfect. Then
And,
I can,
I couldn't go very much farther in case mine because it's a paid thing.
right. But I could take that judgment that you found and chase it back to the actual case, because so what you found was the publication about the decision. So
Right.
how court cases work, or you go down and you file something in Tulsa County, say, and you argue about it and the judge makes a decision. And if you don't like that decision, then you can appeal it. And then the appeals court decides. And eventually, if it's something worthy of that they think other people will also be doing similar things, they'll publish that in a digest. And it basically is also a way to make laws, because then when somebody else goes and files a similar case, they'll refer back to, if you look at this top of this, where it says Carnahan versus Peabody, that's the SD means Southern District of New York in 1928. And they could go back to this Southern District of New York and look for this case, which is going to give me some place to go look for it, except that's going to be the National Archives. And I can't get into the National Archives right now.
Oh, okay.
But that's what that judgment leads me back to, a courthouse to look.
I found another article called the Madeira Tribune.
Okay.
I don't have a link for it, but I found it on newspaper. It may be that other one, but it's in California Digital Newspaper Collection.
Okay. Yeah.
The 20th of December, 1929. And it's an article, but I again got caught because it was, they had the very first page of it, and then you had to pay to see the rest of it.
So you guys did exactly what I would do. I would go to Ancestry and I would try to do the descendancy tree of John Jacob or John Nicholas Emmerich and get where my family could fit in compared to my tree. And I would do newspaper research and try to find more information about this case. And I would do courthouse research to actually find those documents and look at them. And then I could determine if their claim was true or not.
Another interesting point I found too was that when John made this agreement with John Astor, it was for a period of 90 years, and that the heirs were to be found before this 90 years was up.
Okay.
And so I think that's the reason that it was coming out so much in 1929, because that there was a scramble, to find all these heirs and everything, and then they lost the suit.
Hadn't Astor died by that time? Wasn't that why they
were? Astor died, and Emmerichs were, all the Emmerichs had died too. That, so it was way down. The Emmerichs all died in 1816.
Okay.
Practically the same year. And I've forgotten when John Astor died.
Well, I'm sure that Stillwater is still waiting on the celebration that Jesse Clyde Dover promised them.
What about the trust, Annette? You know, they talked about how the money had been in a trust afterward. Was that the 90-year thing that?
It
Okay.
could have been. It could have been. So the interesting thing about a trust is, unless there's a dispute, the court doesn't generally get involved in a trust. And the good thing about that is then you don't pay attorney's fees for their part. You're not paying an administrator. A lot of people recommend that for estate work because you keep your affairs out of the court, which means you keep them out of the papered record that we want to see. We don't want our family doing trust, right? We want to see those records. And unless the family keeps a copy of the trust and what transpired with it, it's not going to be found in the court record. So
well, that may be the reason.
Isn't a trust filed somewhere though?
No.
They're not ever filed anywhere.
Just with a lawyer or something?
They would be filed if there was a dispute. They might be filed in the court records, but generally that is not the case. You do not want the courts in your business if you do a trust.
Well, and that's probably the reason then that the family didn't know about it. The agreement with John Emmerich and John Astor.
Well, if they had a business together, that would have been different because.
But I don't think it was a business. I think they were just in partnership with each other. I don't.
Well, a partnership or is still a business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so.
I was going to see if I could locate my picture of Jesse so you guys could see him.
Oh, I saw a picture of him.
I saw pictures.
Oh, you probably did. If you were on
Ancestry.
Ancestry, you probably did see pictures of him. So
He had a top hat on or some kind of hat.
Yes, that's exactly the picture I have of him. He was quite a mess. So let's see if I can share this picture. So what I haven't told you about Jesse Clyde Dover is that he had a bunch of kids and a wife that he ran off and left. And so you might have come across an article that his wife filed in the paper that she was looking for him. I actually was in communication with some of his daughters in their later years, and they talked about how their mom struggled to take care of them. And he was in Stillwater. He was all over the place at different times. So he was.
Say again how you're related to him.
He's my great-grandfather's brother. My great-grandfather is D.W. Dover, and he died in 1932. And the only ones left were this guy and Alonzo by that time. And then the girls moved to California. They were gone by the time this article came out.
Yeah. Well, when Warda, that was his wife, right?
Yeah, Warda, yes. Yeah. And she raised those kids and they lived in Garnett, Kansas. And so every time I go to Kansas City, we usually go up 169 and we kind of drive by Garnett, Kansas. And I always think of them when I drive through there. But yeah, I've found lots of clippings over him over the years of just different little snippets. But I think he thought a whole lot of himself.
So did the Stillwater paper didn't ever have a follow-up to his trip to pursue this?
It did say the claim was rejected. It did. I did find an article that said, when I found this one, I found that one as well that said it had been rejected. So I was quite sure that I don't have some fortune laying somewhere waiting on me. I would love that, but I don't think that's the case. So,
well, did he have a lot of land, and is that the reason that Philadelphia and Or did he have buildings or land?
I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what
see, it
all he
only
had.
mentions this fur business.
Yeah.
Well, some place they're talking about ships that he owned. He was supposed
Yeah.
to own.
There isn't.
I just put up 2 links there. You may already have them, but they're
Okay.
quite interesting reading.
Okay.
One of them is a list of things that a person did researching this.
Okay.
That'll be good. Yeah. Maybe that Rush family.
I'm sorry that Carol didn't make it tonight because she told me she had
I
done quite a
know.
bit of research on it. So I was curious to see what she came up with.
Well, in one article, I'll have to check and see which one it was, but I found where it was in his words. It was not in his handwriting. It was typed, but where he described what he had and.
His holdings.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I didn't get that one down. Well, I don't know. Something must have come up that she wasn't here, but she'll. I see Jim. Jim, had you? Can you hear me? You have to unmute your mic. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but anyway, I wondered if he had done any of the research. So.
Yeah, and I had talked to Linda. She had messaged me about something, and she had said she planned to come tonight too. So she must have had something else come up.
Yeah, she had a conflict. She emailed me and told me she wasn't.
Okay. Okay.
But, I don't know about Sue. I don't know where she went. So it's hard to remember these Zoom meetings, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Dorothy, can you hear me there?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Jim.
Oh, okay. I found what's one little thing it's on the free pages for rootsweb.com called The Legend of John Nicholas Emmerich, the facts by this guy named Willis L. Brown.
Okay.
And it's a big, long little article that he wrote it down, but he said he's never in all of his years of researching this whole thing with John Emmerich ever found that he had ever even been in the fur business or was ever a partner with John Jacob Astor. Yeah. And,
well, that's interesting.
Yeah, when I found that one, I quit looking.
Yeah, that's that first article. That's the free pages from Roots Web.
Yeah, I found that one in there, but and he wrote this on the 15th of May, 1998. Willis L. Brown was his name. And he said, in conclusion, he says, my research conducted over many years has never produced one piece of evidence which shows the existence of a John Nicholas Emmerich as a participant in the fur trade, as a partner to John Jacob Astor, or as an owner of large amounts of property. I do recognize the existence of the men with that name and others with the name of Valentine, Andreas, and Christopher Emmerich. I don't know if he meant to say man there, but he said men, M-E-N.
Yeah.
So,
so
he's found all these other people, but none of them ever had anything to do with John Jacob Astor. So,
wait, are the Jacob
as far
Astor
as he knows,
or Emmerich?
Well, no, with any of the Emmerichs, I don't think he doesn't find any of the Emmerichs that ever even had anything to do with the fur business with John Jacob Astor, or ever even owned anything other than just, I think Mr. Emmerich, he found that he owned some land in Ohio, like 1,000 acres of land, but that's all. And I don't even know if it's the same man or not. I don't know. It could be a different person with the same name. I don't know.
That's interesting. I will, that's another thing that court record is going to tell us. It's just going to give us some details to that part of it. So
he says even the Germans even got in on it too.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, if nothing else, this is going to make for a great story in my family history. You know what I'm saying? I can take this article and write about the research that I did and how it all turned out. So I can't imagine that they didn't believe there was some connection to this guy. I mean, why? I mean, that's a lot of trouble to hire an attorney and go back east and make a claim in a probate state that you had no idea that you were,
Wait, it said that there were emirate clubs, including heirs, in the 1950s in Germany. John Nicholas was said to have had 70 million in German assets, so that's the reason Germany got into it, and 20 million in the US.
Wow.
So,
guys, as this conversation has gone on, it's brought back a memory. And I can believe this was also discussed many, many years ago. It has to be over 20 years ago at the Computer Assisted Genealogy Society of Northern Illinois at one point in time. And I don't think they came to any conclusions either.
Wow.
I see Michelle's, yeah, go ahead. Michelle put something in the chat about the heirs of.
Yeah, it's a paid article, so I'm trying to find a free version of it.
Okay, this was in the New York Times.
Yeah, so I'm looking on newspapers.
Oh, okay.
I think one of my many library subscriptions, I can get to the New York Times. I can't recommend that enough. If you go to a library, ask them if you can get a free library card, because they all have different databases that they make available at home through their library membership.
Ah,
Nice. Yep.
So it may, and it could be one of the bigger libraries that I belong to that I'll have to see if that one's on there. And that one's from 1928.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting. And I'm so excited now that I can work on the research. So, and I'll definitely give you guys an update next month.
yeah.
If I find anything. So
Yeah.
Well, some of us may have more time and between now and then, and next month we could sit. We this ain't closed. you got to
no, it's been going on for 100 years. I don't think it's going to close anytime soon. So,
well, that was interesting, though.
Dorothy, you were talking about Zoom conflicts. Right now, the Newberry has a Zoom meeting going on.
Oh, really?
Right on top of this meeting.
Oh.
And I've signed up for both of them, of course.
Well,
nice.
I didn't realize there were conflicts until, it's just time for the meeting. They're both listed on the calendar.
Well, if it's, is it still going on? Your other one?
Oh, no, I won't break it in the middle of it. Most of them don't let you do that anyway.
Well, I guess so. I know some of them close after a certain period of time. They don't let anybody else in. So, but
well, does anybody have any questions that they want to talk about tonight? Anything you come up with that you'd like to have us look at?
I'll tell you one of my other distractions. The virtual genealogy group had a session on World War I records on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was excellent. I gotta tell you.
Who's the teacher?
Just a minute.
I'm gonna go watch it.
It's KBBARCOMB. Let's see if she signed this. Kristen Barcom. And I got to tell you, it is a high level course. She covers something like 8 forms that I had never heard of before. And she gives out her email address, and I'm sitting there talking. The thing I was doing is I was logging on tonight, was trying to respond to her because I asked a question. You know how I ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked one of those paragraph questions, and she's still trying to answer it, but she's on vacation this week. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, I'm selling a house this week. So
yeah. Oh, goodness.
So I think their classes are available for so long after the live one, aren't they, Robert?
Yeah, I haven't seen this one come back up yet, but I haven't had time to check it this week.
Okay.
It was Sunday afternoon.
It was on military records?
Yeah, it was on World War II military records. Let's see if I got the presentation name here. My correspondence with her is getting quite long.
Yeah, a bit.
Well, she did such a good job. I don't think I put the title in there.
Well, I can look over there. I'm a member there, so
Yeah.
I can find it.
The other person that I love to sit and listen to on military records, World War I, World War II, is Jennifer Hollick. Have you ever listened to any of her presentations?
I stumbled across her someplace. That name is familiar.
I saw.
Was it in Kansas City, maybe?
I saw her in person at Roots Tech, I think, a few years ago, and sat through one of hers, and then I sat through all of them, the rest of the ones that she had, because she was really good with and she was the first person I'd ever heard talk about the individual deceased personnel files that weren't burned up in the fire. And it was if your military person died during service, and they're now in St. Louis, but they were not in St. Louis during the fire.
Oh, okay.
So, and we actually, my husband's cousin, her dad was killed in World War II, and we actually successfully ordered his record and got them. So
I've had mixed results with St. Louis. I've asked for both grandparents. The one that I'm working on with this lady, they didn't even respond to the request.
Oh.
The other one, they sent me 54 pages for about $54. It was $1 a page to get them scanned.
Yeah.
But it was detailed. Turned out he was on the USS San Diego when it went down in World War I.
So he was in the Navy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then
Navy records are usually really good.
Yeah. And then I've tried to get my uncle's Navy records, and the first thing they said is you're not a direct line related. You got to prove that. So I went and got a letter from his son that said that to share the records with me, and he wanted a copy of them too. And also, it turned out that his mother was and my uncle's wife were both in the Navy. She was a Navy nurse, which I had not known. So I did that research, and they're buried in Arlington National Cemetery together. And I went and asked for those records, and they never replied to that request with the letter of authorization from the son.
The best thing to do is go there and look at the file yourself. Did any of those records you received from the Navy have pictures in them?
No.
I looked at 2 or 3 Navy records when I was up there the last time, and they had negatives in the files, and they scanned them to a DVD for me before I left.
Oh, wow.
So I got a great picture of my husband's uncle that was in the service, and my great uncle. He's by marriage, and then another distant relative. I got his Navy file, and it had a negative in it.
Yeah,
but
we were a Navy family.
I ordered my great uncle's records from them the same way that you're talking about. I got the daughter to sign off to get me the records. And if it's within the 62 years and a family member orders them, it should have been free. And I also ordered my father-in-law's that way. Neither one of those came with a picture. And my great uncle retired. He was in the service for over 20 years. And I cannot believe that there's not a picture in that file.
Yeah.
Dee has an uncle that was on I have an uncle that was on the USS Osborne among other ships in the Navy. And I found that the Osborne has a newsletter. And I found that my uncle wrote an article in the Osborne newsletter. He was on the ship. This was out in the China Sea at one point in time, and they were on night maneuvers, and another ship crossed its bow and sliced off its bow. He was 1 foot from where that slice occurred.
Gosh.
And he wrote up his experiences on that. That was quite an interesting article. He was a colorful guy anyway. He had some stories, but to read that one and everybody sitting there saying, "Yeah, we remember you, Barney. We remember you out there."
Tell them what the ship's name was.
It was the USS Osborne.
Osborne.
The other thing that with the Navy records, I had a partial newspaper article. I mean, it was the picture and just barely had some words at the bottom of it. And I wanted to see what newspaper or whatever it came from. And I found out about like a museum or an archives that was on the base that my great uncle was on. And I contacted them, and it was from their newspaper on the base. And it was really funny because there were a bunch of women in the picture. It was like a line of men saluting him as he retired. The other side was all women, and somebody had cut the women off of the newspaper article.
Oh.
And so but the lady had to look in hard copies. She looked back through hard copies I told her about when he retired until she found that at that little museum and sent it to me. So I know there are base newspapers and things like that are probably not something you're going to find on newspapers.com, but they're out there for people to use.
I also have I have two rolled up pictures of the graduating two different graduating classes from the Great Lakes Training Center. Both of them are before 1919.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, anybody else have any other questions? Anything you want to talk about?
But Michelle, did you find that article on newspapers.com?
Not yet.
Okay. I did get one off newspapers.com. Let's see, it was an heir to millions. So there's a story on there, and it's a whole column, but it's so small I can't read it.
So when I'm on newspapers.com, I use the clipping some, but when I'm saving it to my computer for me to mess with, I download the whole page.
Oh, okay.
Do you know how to do that? Have you guys done that with newspapers.com?
No, that would be useful.
Yep. Let's just do a little lesson then.
Okay.
Let me get newspapers.com pulled up here. Let me share my screen. Let me close out some of these windows that are on here. Come on. Okay, so if I go to my clippings, I can just go back to the newspapers this way. Let's just do. Yeah, I was talking about her looking for her husband. This is a clip. This is a clipping I did, but if I click on it, it will take me back to the whole newspaper. Okay.
You're teaching me a lot.
Yeah. So here's the newspaper, and I just want to keep this whole page. I don't just take the clipping because I like to see the whole thing. If you go up here to print and save, entire page. And then you can print it or save it. I always hit save. And the other key is save it as a JPEG.
Do both of them, huh?
Do save as a JPEG. I convert it to a PDF after I get it on my computer, but the JPEG definitely gives you the whole page.
Oh, okay.
So there's that. Let me show you what happens if I do a PDF. I did save as PDF. They may have changed it since. Used to, if you did a PDF, it messed it up and didn't work very well. See how it makes it just smaller and puts the header and stuff on it? So you want to stick with that JPEG so you get rid of all of that and gives you a good size piece of information.
Something with some density in it.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done. Yeah.
Okay. So this article was in 1931 when she was reporting him missing. So
He was off looking for the rainbow.
Oh, my lands. He was a crazy guy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
Well, that'll make it a good story.
Yeah,
it
will.
definitely will make a good story.
Hey, my U.S. Marshal that ended up in Leavenworth for a year makes a good story, and everybody takes and laughs about that.
Yeah.
Have you ordered his records for his stay at Leavenworth?
I have his records for his stay in Leavenworth. I have his records for the case files from Fort Worth of his case, not only his case, but the cases that he brought people in and prosecuted.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
The National Archives in Kansas City, where those Leavenworth records are kept, the last time I checked with them, they were very helpful. And the little girl emailed them to me within an hour of me requesting them.
Well, I asked for them to be scanned, and they put them on their website, so you can look up what is his name again, Milton Pultz, on the National Archives site. You'll see the same pictures I've got.
Wow.
I mean, it's already it was there. It was one of the first ones they scanned in Leavenworth.
Well, I think we ought to, as soon as the National Archives open back up, I think we ought to plan a trip to St. Louis.
Oh, I think it'd be fun. That'd be fun.
The last time I went up there, I ordered like 60 records to look at.
Wow.
So I understand the process is you got to tell them before you go there what you want and what day you will be there.
Yep. When I sent them mine, they asked me to print them out and mail them hard copies, but they asked me to give them a spreadsheet with all my requests on it to help them out. So I did. And then they let me know they were all ready and asked when I could come to view them. And I scheduled 2 days to be up there. Now, what I learned when I got up there was I didn't request everything. I used the form to request their military record, but they also had burial record, and you have to fill out a different request form for that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I did not get those burial records when I was there because they said they did not have time to pull them. So
I get that a lot in the federal stuff.
Yeah.
Well, at that location, it's not like that at Washington, D.C., but at St. Louis, they literally have one person watching a person look at records. So for every person they have in there looking at a record, they have to have one employee to watch that person.
Oh my gosh.
Good Lord.
Why?
They're just that particular with the records.
Don't walk out.
I mean, the young girl that was watching me look at records, when I came across that negative, it was in a little envelope. You can't take out any staples. You can't fold out any corners or anything on the page. And it was like a little envelope in there. And I kind of just pinched it a little bit to see what was in it. And I tilted the envelope up and the thing starts falling out towards my hand. And she starts screaming at me from the counter about 15 feet away. You can't touch that with your bare hand. I mean, she was screeching. And I'm like, I mean, it's falling. And I'm like, and so when it hit my hand, I did, the jump, let it fall on the desk. And it was quite the ordeal.
Ever since I went to an archive in Greeley, Colorado, I carry a pair of white gloves.
I couldn't have touched it even with the white glove. I was not supposed to take it out of the envelope.
No.
So,
but crazy.
after she screamed at me, then she offered to have it scanned to a disc for me. And so I was okay. I recovered quickly. I recovered very quickly. So,
okay.
Anyway. Well, I have enjoyed visiting with you guys tonight.
Yeah, this is really
fun.
Good information.
Yeah. So I'll try to come up with something for next month, and I'll try to send out something a little earlier this time. Maybe a couple of weeks out or something for you guys to look at or think about. Or if you have some ideas, I am open to talk about those. And try to figure out what information we need to answer questions.
Okay.
So
this has been very helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Because like you say, everybody comes at things from different directions. It's the nice thing about us all being so different, I guess, but kind of united, we can all figure it all out. So
Right.
that was good. Okay. Is there anything else anybody would like to say? I'm sure you want to show Annette how you feel about her presentation. So look down there at the reactions and send her flowers or a thumbs up or clapping hand or whatever. That we appreciated what you did. Okay. All right, this will be, I'll edit it tomorrow, then I'll put it up on our website. And you don't have to be, you don't have to go behind the membership wall or anything to see these videos. You can see them. Just go to the website and go to the YouTube videos and you can see them. So if you want to rehear any of it or anything, then it'll be there. So I thank each one of you for coming. I don't know, we're gonna have to get a cowbell to get some of these other people in here, I think. So they're just not doing it. But anyway, thanks for coming and enjoyed having you. And we'll be back next month, the second Tuesday night of the month. So put it on your calendar that you've got a Zoom 6, and Annette and I'll come up with something. But if you have a situation or a brick wall or something, let us help you with it. I mean, we'll all learn from that experience. So be kind.